$1,500 mortgage payment, somewhere around there. And, you know, seeing that at 32 to 38. So, a regular person. Yeah, I agree, man. Yeah, that's just. How do you think about it? Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and then, you know, you shouldn't like a conversation that hold on, spend it. Spend 0.2. But that's great. Well, that's cool. Well, that's good. Yeah, that's good. Oh yeah, I just talked to a guy an hour ago. Yeah. They just moved here from Tennessee. Yeah, we're gonna do one. All that. There are a few changes.
Yep, it works.
Oh no, probably not. What would be really helpful is if changes were highlighted.
It's a hot replace. I'll go over it. Most of them. On 13 through 17, do you know what all the changes are?
Give me a second.
I guess we should just go off this to get the rest.
What page?
Good, how are you? I don't know. I think maybe a couple. This is the actual budget committee meeting. And it's gonna be, we're gonna set record time here. I think we have to elect one.
I'll be talking about that. Yeah, I think I've got all the changes. It's just how it's visualized.
Everybody's going. Yeah. You spending a lot of time over in like, I don't know, does it go to Sandy? Does the district?
Sandy, it's actually not food, but it goes right around all the way.
The exurbs of Sandy, the suburban.
All the way to Sandy River.
Yeah.
Everything around that.
Yeah.
Here.
See,
Part of that.
government camp, the Dalles, Parkdale.
Yeah, I've never spent so much time there. In the whole time I've been here since I graduated.
So I'm gonna hit that.
Yeah.
Oh, cool. Yeah. Well, that's the interesting part, right? Like,
It is pretty interesting. It's so much more.
We just had actually.
take an honest, like on it. If you take a like an energetic run at it,
Exactly.
it's a ton of work.
This is right now.
Yeah.
She's not here and I don't think she's on our list. But she's
I'm not on the list either.
weird.
So I know
Yeah,
I
you're-
almost
you're
missed.
from a citizen, right?
I'm budget committee.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah, but you're representing as a citizen. on
Yes.
the budget, yeah.
Yes. That's what they
Budget.
tell me.
Budget. Yes.
That's what they tell me.
And of the, not even the whole pie. It's like a little tiny fraction.
Hey, Richardson? Dan?
Hell of a nice downtown.
Gary Richardson?
I
The-
don't have a gavel, but I see the time is at 5:30, so we will start. start the meeting. Paula, would you call the roll, please?
Jill Amory,
Here.
Casey Cook,
Here.
Cody Cornett,
Here.
Walter Denstedt,
Here.
First Ericoli,
Present.
Scott Hagee, Jennifer Jacquard. Jennifer, you're muted.
I'm here.
Anna Lawrence, Liz Lieberg or Lieberg. Absent. Kristen Lilvick. Absent. Timothy McLaughlin. And Dean Meyerson,
Here.
Dan Richardson.
Here.
Jeffrey Shulkers is absent. Beth Stelzer. Absent. Marcus Swift.
Here.
Bob Wood. Absent. Ben Ring.
Present.
Yes.
Hey, could I have, like, I know these guys and who's on council and stuff, but anybody that's representing council and agency, just say that where they're.
Sure. Why don't we do it just a quick round robin? Go ahead and start, Donna.
Anna Lawrence, and I'm a citizen.
Very good. We'll go clockwise to Cody.
Cody Cornett.
Marcus Swift, North Wasco Parks and Recreation.
And I'm Scott Hagee with Wasco County.
Dan Richardson, City Council of the Dalles.
Walter Denstead, Mid-Columbia Fire and Rescue.
Ben Ring, City Council.
Jacob Anderson, Economic Development Officer and Urban Renewal Agency Manager.
Rita Meyer, Finance Director for City of the Dalles.
Folks online, I hope you can hear me. Just do a quick round robin. We'll start with Jill, if you would, please.
Yep, I can hear you, Dan. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Perfect. Jill Amory representing Port of the Dalles.
Very good. Jennifer, you're next.
Hi, I missed that first part. I'm Jennifer. I'm a citizen.
Very good.
Thank you.
Thank you. Forrest, you're up.
Hi, I'm Forrest Ercole, and I am a citizen of the Dalles.
Excellent. Seth.
Yeah, Seth Henderson with Level Development. We had turned in a proposal a while back on the Tony site and just always excited to hear what's happening in the Dalles.
Thank you for your interest, Seth. And Jonathan.
Hi, this is Jonathan Kerak, City Attorney for the Dalles and Agency Attorney for you all and the agency.
Very good. Yes.
Yes.
Did I forget Casey? We did forget Casey. I apologize. Casey.
Casey Cook, citizen.
Very good. Next on the agenda is the Pledge of Allegiance. Stand with me if you're able.
Pledge allegiance to the flag.
To the republic which stands
One nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. We are now needing somebody to make a motion and approve our agenda, which I'm holding right here.
I make a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
Very good. Is there a second to the motion? Very good. All in favor, raise your hand or say aye, please.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion passes. We'll continue on with the agenda. We need to elect a chair and a secretary. Are there any motions from the floor? The chair and the secretary, remind me, Mr. Anderson, this is for the purpose of the meeting or the purpose of continuing on as chair and secretary for the board for the year?
This is for the meeting.
This is for the meeting. We need a chairperson for the meeting.
I'd move to nominate Dan Richardson as chair.
Are there any other nominations? Very good. Do I have any for secretary? I will actually nominate Ben Ring for secretary, Counselor Ring.
I'll second that.
Very good. Any other nominations? Going once, twice, thrice. Will held one vote Jonathan will tell me if I am acting inappropriately. All in favor of, I'm sorry? All in favor of myself as chair and Councilor Ring as secretary for the meeting, say aye or raise your hand.
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Speak now. Any abstentions? All right, seeing none. We carry on. There's some minutes in our packet. I hope everybody's had an opportunity to take a look at the packet. And I believe there was a change or two. Is it needful to mention or discuss, or am I off base here?
On the minutes
Were there any changes to the minutes? I may have misheard that.
that I'm aware of.
Well, look who you voted in as chair. Are there any comments, questions, or do we want a few minutes to read the minutes? Hearing none.
I reviewed the minutes and I make a motion that we approve the minutes from the 2025 meeting.
Very good.
I'll second the motion.
Is there any further discussion? All right. All those in favor of the minutes, aye, or raise your hand.
Aye.
Aye. Those online, speak or use your emoji, your hand raising, please.
And Dan, I would abstain since I was not on the board and can't speak to them from the prior year.
Very good. Are there any other abstentions?
Yes, sir. I also abstain as I was not at that meeting last year.
Very good. Anyone opposed? All right. Motion passes. Number 7 on the meeting. Budget officer's message for the fiscal year 26-27. Mr. Anderson.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, members of the Urban Renewal Agency Board, and thank you to members of this esteemed board. You are all volunteering your time, and we as staff appreciate you for what you do, looking at the budget, reviewing the budget, and making recommendation to the Urban Renewal Agency Board on the budget. The budget process takes time. And as you'll see, we've made changes that have been passed out to you on the budget, and I apologize for getting them to you at such a late hour. It's not how we usually like to do business here at the city. Things have been very busy with a late audit, and we are so fortunate to, and I wanted to start with thanks. Thank you to Brita Meyer, our new finance director, who's been here and had to jump into the hot seat and has done a wonderful job helping me get through this budget. I'd also like to say thank you to City Manager Matthew Klebs, who has been through this process before and is invaluable in his budgeting knowledge and all of his knowledge about how public agencies work. And I'd also like to say thank you to Paula. Paula stepped in at the last minute when our administrative assistant had to take a leave of absence and just knocked it out of the park. So thank you to staff and thank you to you all for allowing me to give you this budget message for the 26-27 fiscal year. I'm not going to read a budget message. It's not how I operate. I want to talk to you and explain where we're at and how we got here. I do want to mention a few of the corrections. First of all, the Zoom link that was put in the paper was a dead link. And so Brita was able to talk to the state, and we made the changes on the online Zoom account and posted those to the website. So that was an error on my part for allowing that to happen. We also have updated pages for you that have been passed out. Page number 4, we had inadvertently left out our chair, Richardson, as a member of the committee to not trying to tell him anything. We just made the mistake. You will also see changes on pages 10 and 11, as well as 13 through 17. And what this occurs is a few things go into it. The program that we use to do our budgeting software doesn't begin with a beginning fund balance. And so we have to go through our auditing process. And if we haven't finished our auditing process, we have to make assumptions on what our ending balance is going to be for 26 because we haven't finished 26. And so we have to make assumptions on what the ending fund balance is going to be and what that beginning fund balance for 27 is going to be. We also, this was my first time using the software, and so we double booked a couple of entries. So these are all changes to the good for the agency. We had the $730,000 that is the development funding agreement for Basalt Commons was booked to be expended in 26 because that's what we thought when we did last year's budget. And that won't occur in the 26 fiscal budget. That's going to occur in the 27 fiscal budget. So we needed to make that change to the ending fund balance and make sure that we're only spending the money once. So that changes your line item for the incentive program grants that currently shows 824,000. That availability will be $1,554,000.
Sorry,
which-
Jake, what page are you on?
That is page. Oh, it is not broken out for you. I thought, but it's within page 14. So when you look at the property rehabilitation on page 14, it shows $3.584 million. What that is that includes everything underneath the property rehabilitation tab. And so this change is just a move inside of that because internally we have that broken out for the development funding agreement of $730,000 for the Basalt Commons project.
That just Basalt Commons then, or is it for the other?
So inside the property rehabilitation tab, you have the Basalt Commons project or the $730,000 for the DFA. You also have $1 million for the payment of the SDCs for Basalt Commons. You have the 1.554 million for the incentive program. And so what we do with urban renewal, it's a little bit different than city council, is we budget everything. The goal is to have A balanced budget, and B, have no unappropriated funds left over. So that if something comes up, we have the legal ability to spend the money on projects if it comes up. Again, all of that goes through the Urban Renewal Agency board, so it's not me just spending the money. It is the board decision, but the history of urban renewal is that we have the ability to spend the funds that are available.
Sorry, quick question, Jacob. What was that number for the incentive program?
The incentive program is $1,554,000.
Very good. Thank you.
The budget for that line item in the 25-26 budget was $1,400,000. So the amount that we have for that program is actually increasing from one year to the next. And that is primarily due to the fact that what we had budgeted to spend, we didn't spend as much as we thought we would this current year. There's been a little bit of change in the market and costs associated with construction. And so people who were interested in doing projects are a little bit slower getting through permitting. We still have the funds that are committed. What I'll do is I'll pass out the incentive program committed and expenditures for my updated table. I'll pass that out here in a little bit so that you can see where we're at in terms of how much of that is committed. And currently, like we have signed agreements for, and so that is part of that 1.554 million that could be spent if those people move forward with those projects.
Let me ask one other question just for my clarity and perhaps one or two other people's sake. Urban renewal is also different from city or really any other local entity's budgeting process because it's funded through this thing called tax increment financing, which is complicated and has lots of syllables in the word, but it really means like there is a bucket of money that the agency can spend over the life of the agency and has a maximum. And it's not like we're here to dial it up or down. And even if we were, that money doesn't go back to people, right? This is squeezed out of local governments, essentially, if you will. Correct? So this is not like we're going to set property tax rate. This is essentially long-term contract or agreement among all these local governments, and we just set like an annual budget.
Yes, we are setting the annual budget that's in accordance with the amount of money that we have coming in, both through tax increment financing as well as for this next year. We have a loan repayment on the Commodore building that we are budgeting. And so tax increment financing is a very deep hole that we could jump down and spend hours on the nuances of. The best thing to understand is that we will be receiving funds through tax increment financing through 2029, at which point the income stream will dissipate. The agency itself can live on past 2029 and can complete its work if there are projects that are still outward and available.
You say that last.
Yes. Up until 2029, the agency will continue receiving the funds from tax increment financing. The agency itself, the Urban Renewal Agency, Columbia Gateway Urban Renewal Agency, will not necessarily cease to exist until the job has been done for the plan that we have put forward. So just because you get the funds that year does not mean that that everything has to be spent that year.
Sure.
Yes, absolutely.
Thing that I've been told in these meetings is when it ends, it ends. Have to sunrise it out or whatever the word is in 2029, they told me according to Oregon state law, which I don't know is the truth or not. I don't know if that was the decision of city council or if it truly is a state mandate. But I was told in this meeting that it will end, and now it sounds like it'll end like maybe not taking new projects on, but we have to pay all these people off that we made an agreement with. That's what it sounds like.
If we have entered into contracts to expend funds and say, for example, the board continued like with Basalt Commons and there was a hiccup or something, and the agency has entered into contractual agreements to expend those funds, and that is part of the plan, then you can continue past 2029 so that you can close out the agency at such time to expend the funds.
Can't be raising any more money.
You cannot raise any further funds.
Okay, so the taxing agencies like the fire department, you're not going to can't take any more money out.
Correct.
Correct.
Yes.
Old. You know, the fire district didn't like it when the thing was extended. There was original sunset and we got outvoted, so it was extended. And it's not anybody's working here now, but they came down to try to sue this. And we were told that when it sunsets, if there's money left over, we might get some back. And I was like, yeah, fat chance. But that's what we were told.
Well,
So if there are remaining funds that are currently unbudgeted towards a plan or towards projects that are left over, then yes, those funds will be reimbursed to the taxing districts.
Yeah, there's a lot of ifs in there.
I'm just saying that is, again, an agency decision at that time.
Never under the, fantasy that we were going to get money back. So I'm not going to be disappointed
So,
if we don't.
guys, we're here to move along the budget, so let's keep our discussion to
when can
where
we
we
have
are.
this discussion then
Which discussion, Don?
about basalt?
It's after the presentation.
About basalt?
Well, about extending it, the possibility of extending it. So
I don't think we are going to address tonight whether the agency will have work past its sunset date, right? We're setting a budget for 1 year. In 2029, the money faucet gets turned off. If the board at that point has sort of outstanding projects legally, we can finish those. That's what Mr. Anderson said. But there's no more funds. Everything reverts to the taxing entities at that point.
I'm sorry, but I still have a question. When was the decision to continue on with Basalt Commons? Because we had passed a budget in April, correct, last year? And now we're saying, oh, but we'll give you an extension. Only we didn't have any voice in that. And,
We did have an elected board, so there was a voice. Any decision was made in public. So
which elected you guys?
we have an urban renewal board. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
we were under the assumption that that wasn't part of the budget. Renewing that wasn't part of the budget.
I don't know what to say to that except nothing. I don't have anything I don't know what to say to your assumption. I'm sorry.
Well, the extension didn't impact the budget. I don't think. It just gave that project more time instead of saying, too bad we're yanking the money we already dedicated to you. They said, you have an extension, try to get your loan, try to get going, all that kind of stuff.
And I want to be clear, I was only using that as an example of something that could happen in the future because it's something that we all know about. I'm not saying that there is any talk about extending Basalt Commons through 2030 or past the agency. I'm just was using that as only an example.
Can I ask one more question? I swear to God, it's one more. So is there a state mandate that says that urban renewal has to end in 2029?
The state mandate, according to state law, is that we will cease taking revenues at that time.
Okay.
Please continue.
Thank you, sir. Other changes that you will see in your updated packet is capital projects by city. We have a Fund 18 transfer for the Federal Street Plaza. And in your budgeted, your preliminary budget that had $150,000 that was budgeted for 2027. That transfer is going to take account in the 2026 fiscal year, and it was double booked because it was showing up in 26 and 27. We eliminated it in 27, so that gave us another $150,000 of overall budget capacity because we're only spending it once, not twice. So that is a major change to that plaza match. So as it is presented in the amended budget, the budget as amended is balanced as well as allows the agency the greatest latitude to spend the funds as possible. So with that statement, the most important thing that we all need to know that makes the whole thing work is that our beginning fund balance estimate is $6,406,458. So you'll see like in the city budget as well as this budget, because of the budgeting software, you'll see negative numbers because the software does not allow us to start with a beginning fund balance. But when you take a look at how we budget, that is how we zero it out to ensure that we have a balanced budget as required by law. With that, those changes, I know this gets a little murky when we're making changes the day of, and I apologize very much. The major things for you all to understand that were the staff's recommendations for the changes to the budget from the 25-26 is the opportunity-driven projects that are capital projects by the agency. In 2025-26, that amounted to $30,178. The amended budget has $300,000 and presented budget for opportunity-driven projects. So those are capital projects by the agency, and this is staff's recommendation based on our conversations from the Urban Renewal Agency Board through the beginning of this year about what can the board do from what it's been done in the past and what options are available. So this is kind of one squirrel or one set of money that is set aside for things that the agency deems that are capital projects that they may want to separate out from the incentive program. Another change is the creation of the community support program. This is, you do not see it, but it is within the property rehabilitation section, and that is $300,000. And so what we have right now, and the agency created the exterior pilot refresh program earlier this year. And what that program pilot project was $100,000 set aside for a 100% match program to do a refresh of downtown. And these are grants up to $7,500, 100% reimbursable to the building owner. And the building owner goes and gets a contractor and has to follow the the requirements set aside by that program. It has been wildly successful to date. Within the last 2 months, we already have 9 applications that have been presented and turned in that are in either in the midst of getting done or getting prepped to start or hiring contractors. That those funds, from my perspective as staff, is this was my marketing program in order to get people through the door so that they'll do the 50-50 match on the incentive program. And it has been successful already. One person who applied for the 7,500 then came in and said, well, I want to do this on my facade. And I said, well, in order to do that, you need to put in for an incentive program grant, and that's a 50-50 match, not a 100% match. And so not only are they doing the facade, but they're also doing a roof repair at the same time. And so the purpose of that program is in business, you figure you need to spend about 10% of your money on marketing in order to get people through the door, and it's working right now. So as you can see from the past couple of years, we created the incentive program. The first thing when I became staff to the agency, we started making amendments to the guidelines of the incentive program to up the costs. Before I came on board, the maximum amount was $50,000. Well, if we've all seen the cost of increases in projects since 2020, $50,000 doesn't get you very much on a project. So if we want to move the needle and get the dollars out the door, we amended the incentive program to up to $300,000. So if it's a $600,000 project, you could get up to $300,000 if the costs are eligible and the project meets all the metrics and requirements and guidelines of the incentive program. So the agency is now set for the use of these incentive program dollars that we have budgeted for $1.5 million for this next year. This is on top of the Basalt Commons project because that is a development funding agreement as well as the SDC payment. So this is money on top of the allocation that's been set aside. We could do quite a few projects with those dollars. My understanding is where we want to leave this is that when 2029 rolls around and the money stops flowing in and the agency begins its sunset process, my goal is to make sure that downtown is as lively and looks as good as it possibly can so that we can weather the next 20 years before maybe another urban renewal tax increment financing kicks in again. As properties, we want to make sure that the business owners and the building owners can afford to repair and replace the things that are breaking on their buildings, that rents are at a place where you can afford to do that, so that we don't so that downtown does not experience blight in the future like it has in the past. And that's kind of been the directive that I've been given by the agency as I see it through all of our minutes and conversations and exchanges.
That's great to hear that so many people have taken advantage of that incentive program. One other update is when we look at our income, the expected payment on the Commodore building is money that comes in that is not subject to the MI. So that is your maximum indebtedness. So the agency in tax increment financing works through maximum indebtedness. And so once you either take out a loan or a bond, that becomes your maximum indebtedness. And then you spend that money. You can give it out in loans, you can do whatever, or you can give it out in grants. The income that was part of the Commodore was a loan many years ago at 1%, and that has $282,000. When that money comes back in, we can spend that money again. It does not go against our maximum indebtedness for the overall amount of money that we can spend because it only counts against you once. I could talk for another 25 minutes on how maximum indebtedness works, but for this budget, I don't think it's probably the best available use of our time. If you would like to, though, I would be happy to have a full explanation of it outside of the budget committee if anybody's interested. With that said, in your budget message, there have been a few changes, I would say. When I was building this budget, we were in the really wonderful spot where we had the First Street project for construction come in well under budget, well under budget. What I wanted to do is I budgeted the full $3.2 million for the Urban Renewals Agency expected contribution as if it came in at the design value. Since that time, First Street, we have experienced an increase in the archaeological costs for the archaeological consultant. That is potentially going to continue to increase. And so I feel confident that we are sitting up at the 3.2 million that we have budgeted. I budgeted the full amount, even though it came in well under budget, so that we can absorb some of those costs. So that is one of the potential change. I mean, for the budget, it stays the same, but I wanted to make the budget committee and the agency aware that it is a really good thing that we're trying to create as much cushion as we can on First Street, because we all know that First Street is an archaeological and historic resource, and we're going to see more probably problems before we get through the project.
So Jacob, you're saying we budgeted conservatively on that large project, on urban renewals portion of that large project, and we may end up spending much or most of it depending on
how it goes. Yes. And
Urban renewal or the city?
urban renewal.
so Urban Renewal is the primary financing mechanism for the First Street project, and that was up to $7 million on that total project to do First Street. We recently found out that there is a possibility of having to redo a very, very old clay tile sewer line. And so that's very deep in the ground. And so we will be having conversations between the city and Urban Renewal about whose duty is it to potentially replace that and fit that bill. So First Street could, continue to expand in costs. And those conversations will be occurring between the agency board as well as the city management. And I will keep the board updated as we progress down that path. We don't know if we're going to have to replace it at this time. We're just in the discussions in the initial stages. Another thing that is not included in the budget is the Tony's Lot redevelopment. We currently have no plans for the Tony's Lot. We went through in the previous year, we did the RFEI, so the request for expressions of interest. The Urban Renewal Agency decided a direction to go with one of the proposals. We worked through 6 months of exclusive negotiating agreements, and in the end, at the end of all of that ended up not moving forward. So we are in essence back to square one on the Tony's Lot. I'm currently working with 3 classes through the Oregon Sustainable City Year program who are looking at the Federal Street Plaza. One of those classes is looking at the Tony's Lot specifically, and what potential options we have for the Tony's Lot. That'll be a 10-week course that'll be that just got started 2 weeks ago. So we'll have some ideas from the students, and then at the same time, Tony's Lot is going to be the laydown yard for the Federal Street Plaza project. So we do have some time before we need to move on the Tony's Lot. I would just remind the board as well as the both of the boards that we have sunk a lot of money into Tony's lot so far, probably upwards of $900,000 total on the Tony's property. And so whatever comes onto the Tony's lot after this, just know that likely whoever it may be will likely be asking for more funds as well. But we did not budget any funds for that in this fiscal year, likely because even if we did go out for an RFEI or for proposals, the timing to get through budgeting, the timing to get through financing, the timing to get through permitting, you'll likely be in the next fiscal budget before anything breaks ground. So just be aware that likely at some point in the future, there will be some ask on the Tony's Lot. Basalt Commons is continuing to move forward. Um, the, uh, the county, has moved forward with the purchase and sale. The agency gave an extension to the Basalt Commons to the developer. So within the next few months, we should know whether or not Basalt Commons is moving forward or not. If Basalt Commons does not move forward, that gives the agency in the future years an additional $1.73 million to invest in projects. And so these are just some of the thoughts. Both of that is still within uh, the what's the fund? Property rehabilitation. So even if Basalt Commons stopped today, you would still have the authority to spend that money. It would just be through an incentive program or something else. Those are the three major changes from the previous budget that we've made to squirrel away monies so that the Urban Renewal Agency Board can think about what they want to do in the future. There's been a lot of discussion about potentially not only just investing in the buildings, but potentially investing in the businesses or investing in tenant improvements, investing in potentially business expansion and retention. We are at the sunset years of the agency, and I think everyone understands the goal and what we want downtown to look like. The question is, how do we get there? With that, that concludes my budget report, and I am happy to answer any questions you may have. Ms. Lawrence.
Anyone else? Do you have that written down, the goal for what you want downtown to look like?
It's
Individual basis, or do you have?
So what we have written down for urban renewal and economic development isn't where we would like it to be. We do not have an economic development strategy at this time. We have a vision that was done in 2020 that I've been operating off of in my role as economic development officer, but I don't believe that was even ever adopted. And so that is something that we will be working on in the next hopefully 6 months on top of all my other projects.
What to do?
We have, as you can see in our budget, the majority of our funds going toward capital projects, which are always expensive. We've had some discussion this spring at the Urban Renewal Board about making other investments, including in people, in businesses. And so I'd like to continue those as an agency. Obviously, we're not going to hash those out tonight, but I would like us to spend a modest portion, but some real money in the next 1 to 2 years on people as well as properties, business retention, business recruitment.
Other questions? Did anybody find any other mistakes?
A curiosity question. So this might not be related to this budget, but since Tony's is kind of like in limbo right now, hypothetically, as we get towards our sunsetting time, what if nothing's been chosen to be allocated with Tony's? What's the plan then? Are we going to unload it off the real estate and then take those funds and allocate them into the projects that are still standing, or give that funds back to the municipal bodies that have contributed to the growth?
That will be an agency board decision, not a staff decision. We not only have the Tony's lot, but we also have multiple parking lots downtown, and we also have multiple lots along Mill Creek that the agency owns. So the agency does have assets in place that the agency will have to determine what it wants to do with those, whether it transfers those over to the city for the city to manage the parking lots, or whatever that may be. As we get closer to that sunsetting time, those will be decisions in the next few years. The agency could sell the lots just on the open market and then reinvest that money back into the community, because that is money that is not it just like the repayment of the loan on the Commodore. That is money that if you can spend it again, you could loan it out again to somebody on a long-term note. If you did that, then you'd have to keep the agency alive to manage that note.
So if those assets are sold, that doesn't go back into the financial pot that would then get redispersed back to the initial entities if there were funds left over after sunsetting?
If the agency board decided to do that, then it could.
Very cool. Awesome. Thank you.
Welcome.
Are there any questions from folks online about the budget, the details of the budget, the big picture of the proposed budget? I see Ms. Amory has her hand up. Jill, what do you have?
Sorry, real hand, not virtual hand. Thank you
Right.
for that, Chair. Jacob, I do have a question, and I apologize. I should have probably asked you earlier. Let me see, I have too many screens going. Where does it show? So I see URA property taxes, 799,500. Is that the total of the tax split that comes into the Urban Renewal Agency for the year?
Ms. Amory, how it works is all of the tax increment financing first goes into the debt service account. So if you look at the final page, and then it first goes to service the debt from the bond. And then after whatever is left over after that servicing, then goes into the general fund to be expended on projects outside of that. So then the other piece of that is you'll see it's almost double booked in the debt service fund because there is a reserve for future debt that a few years ago the board found out that we had to have the last payment in hand. And so there's two ways we could budget that. We could budget that into a beginning fund balance that is equal to that payment. But in previous years, it was budgeted that we would expend that money each year to show that that money is still there. So we show that we would expend it, but we actually don't expend it. From my perspective, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense how we're budgeting it, where it could just be sitting in beginning fund balance. Because why would you budget something that you know you're not going to spend? But that is the choice of the past, and we are following the choice of the past, and so that's why it looks a little funny.
So let me clarify what you said. So the debt service line of $1,630,060, that's the total that you budgeted for what's received from property taxes?
Yes, into that
Okay.
account.
Okay. I would not have known that labeled that way, so thank you for the explanation.
I was lost too, so don't worry when I first came across it.
Thanks, Jacob.
Anna.
I have a question about the SIP money from Google. So right now, is it correct the city's getting like 100 million or expects to get 100 million from them?
The SIP money from Google does not flow through the urban renewal budget, so I can't speak to that in this meeting.
Wait,
Let's stick with urban.
stick with urban renewal. This is complicated enough.
Well, all right, it has to do with urban renewal.
Doesn't. They're separate entities. They're separate legal entities. They're separate taxing entities. The city and the urban renewal agency are completely separate entities.
But
So it does not have to do.
go to the taxing agencies like the fire department. Does
From what? From SIP?
Go.
Well,
They have,
in fact, it does,
Not through urban renewal.
but not through urban renewal. It goes directly.
The city,
They would be
the city of the Dalles is a separate government entity from the urban
I
renewal.
understand. But the fact that I thought was a fact is that these taxing agencies will be getting money from the SIP, from Google.
They are, yeah.
So on top of what they're getting from taxes in town and stuff, right? So if it's 100 million now and the SIP is
It's not 100 million. I don't have the number, but it's not $100 million.
If it was, that'd be pretty great.
I had heard that it was possibly going to double to 200 million, so. here's news.
If I could offer some help, Dan. Donna, I'm Jill. I'm your assessor and tax collector. If you want that information, call me at the office and I can explain all that to you if you want that information.
Ben.
a quick question. So in 24 and 25, I see expenditures actual, and in 25, it looks like expenditures actual was significantly less than what we budgeted, but I'm wondering like where we are in 26 with actual
So
expenditures.
this gets back to two things. Very good catch. Thank you very much, Ben. The Cassell program, where our actual expenditures are done, does not get imported in there, so it does not show our 2026 expenditures on that graph. Competing programs. And so until such time, I believe, Finance Director can correct me, as we finish off the year and we get our audited amounts, and then that's when we enter it into of what the actuals were for the year. And it's how the budgeting program works. I assume you're going to be in the same situation with the city at the time. You won't have, it won't show what the 2026 expenditures were.
But also the ClearGov software that we are using for the ClearGov software that we're using for the budgeting process, it does not show that in general, at least as we have found with the software year 2 of using it. And so that is a calculation that we're doing on the side and bringing forward. And so that's where, as Jake mentioned, the beginning fund balance for fiscal year 27 is the 6.4 million, which is larger than what was originally budgeted in 2026 because there were fewer expenditures.
So that's when you're looking at that graph and you're seeing the expenditures budgeted, because we budget to spend everything, that total amount is continuing to go up. If we actually start spending some of the major projects like Basalt Commons, then next year that expenditure budgeted will show less because we'll have less cash on hand at the beginning of the year.
Other budget questions? Please, Scott.
So this is a silly question, I think, but this is just kind of background information that's in here, but it talks about what our outstanding debt is, and that the outstanding debt was for a $10.2+ million bond that was issued in 2009. I was just trying to remember kind of what that was about, and I'm thinking that is this correct? That Urban Renewal basically did a bond to get money in their pocket to do projects with that they were going to pay off in the long term. Is that what that was about?
That is exactly how it works. So what we have is we have some remaining funds from that bond.
Okay.
That are going towards the First Street project. And so what we're doing right now is we are trying to spend those funds as quickly as possible that are the leftovers from the bond on the First Street project. Once we've expended all those funds on First Street, that's when I'll start transferring funds over from Urban Renewal's account into Fund 18 to then pay on the project. So that way we spend all those monies first from that bond, because usually you don't want a bond out there, 15 years and not being spent. But
because we're paying interest on it.
We are paying interest on it, but we're same thing, it's still in an LGIP account and probably getting some interest on it.
Okay, another question I had was on the First Street project listed under projects. I'm sure you already said this, but what is the amount of money that is in the budget for next year?
So there is money in Fund 18 already from the bond, and that is outside of Urban Renewal's agencies. What is set for next fiscal year is 3.2 million in the budget.
Okay.
For First Street. And so when you look at the capital projects by city, that includes both the First Street project as well as the parking lot across kitty corner to the Jefferson Street.
Okay, and that's 484,658.
Correct.
Okay, and then the other one is the 1.73 for Basalt Commons. Okay. All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
One more question. I always forget this time of year. So this is terrible, but it's a great question, I think. The last column on page 18, the Urban Renewal interest share at 84.4%. Is there a definition for what that column actually means?
Finance Director?
That is urban renewal's share of the overall obligation of the bond.
Okay.
Is that a satisfactory answer, Counselor?
Yep.
All right.
Sorry, thanks.
It's all right. I couldn't quite tell. Other budget questions, either live or zooming in?
I will attempt to get a more defined answer on that 84.4% for the agency decision-making day.
Maybe. Thank you.
My apologies, Paula. I will do everything I can to get a better understanding of the 84.4% UR interest share on the obligations to the bond and what that means. I don't have a full understanding. You're welcome.
Board Member Myers, did you have a question? Dean, did you have a question? Nope. Anyone online not being able to see you? I can't tell if you are scratching your heads quizzically or feel satisfied with the level of detail that you've received.
I feel satisfied with the level of detail I have received. Thank you.
Thank you. I see floating thumbs. I see thumbs up. Speak now.
I will also, I would also mention that I apologize to Miss Amory, Forrest, and Jennifer for not emailing out the updated budget documents that have been passed out in the room so that you could go over it with us. That was a complete oversight on my part, and I apologize.
Donna,
Gonna go through each of these projects though, right?
each of which projects? Give me a page.
Like the Tony site and the Basalt Commons and stuff, if we have.
I wasn't planning to go through each one, but if there are questions, we sure can. We have gone through them and through them and through them at
Point
the
of order,
board.
Mr. Chair. I
Yes, sir.
object to going through project by project. That's not the purpose of this meeting. We all have to do our homework and show up prepared. All of the urban renewal meetings are available online. All of the minutes are available online. It does not take much work to go review those meetings, see all the work that people have put in, and show up prepared. The purpose of this meeting is to approve the budget, not to discuss projects of urban renewal.
I don't think that that's the point that Mark is. I think the purpose of his statement was that the urban renewal agency on a monthly basis reviews projects and things like that. Under the incentive program, the agency director has some level of authority up to a specific dollar amount to spend for the incentive program. So if somebody comes to us with like a $10,000 project, you don't have to wait 30 or 60 days to come to the agency board to get permission to spend that money. So the director can spend up to a certain amount for efficiency's sake. And those projects that are on the incentive program, the grant program, and then the larger things like Salt Commons, or I'll pick a random one on here. I don't, Sigmund's Flowers. The Leashes have been working on their building. Those projects are normally discussed during regular agency board meetings during the month. Whereas the nice thing about the sheet that our finance directors provided us with this evening is that it does show the funding amounts and things like that. I think if we go back to sort of the beginning of this meeting, the purpose of the meeting this evening is not to necessarily make decisions on individual projects, but rather we have X amount of money planned to spend in the next fiscal year, versus, and are we going to overrun that, right? Like, are we going to spend I'll pick another number off the top of my head here. Are we going to spend in the next fiscal year, more than what we have in our bucket? So on page 13, the update is well over $7 million. Are we going to spend that in the next fiscal year? I think that would be the purpose of the Urban Renewal Budget Committee meeting, making sure we're not going to overdraw ourselves and
That we're not budgeting $10 million or some ridiculous number, right? I guess I would say, for everybody's benefit, all citizens, all residents, and all board members particularly are invited to our monthly urban renewal boards. And we have a lot of discussion. We always have a lot of public comment. So one and all are welcome to join us and to talk about individual projects every month. Yeah. Are there any more questions about the budget?
Okay, I do have one more
Absolutely.
question. So not to be pessimistic, but what's the worst case scenario given in like 2029 or even 2030? In 2030, we're not receiving any more revenues. Walt brought up I think a good discussion point about like what happens to unspent funds and things like that after 2029. Is there a worst case scenario, since we are getting up to that line in the sand? Is there a worst case scenario where we don't have any more money? I mean, hopefully we've like spent it all responsibly and done a lot of like really good things for the district. But are there any like worst case scenarios that we're not thinking of as a budget committee?
In terms of worst case, are you saying worst case is in you don't have you have money, you don't have a project to spend it on, and that goes back to the junior taxing district as that being a worst case? What do you mean by a worst case?
Yeah, I guess that could be one, but maybe First Street is a good example where we're going to run into like archaeological things, right? And so between the city and the Urban Renewal Agency, how are we prepared to handle potential drastic like cost overrun, because that's a massive project, right?
I thought he was going to leave.
Oh no.
Worst case scenario I see right now, the biggest liability the agency has, which is technically not the agency's biggest liability, it is the city's liability, because First Street is a city project. It is being funded in part or in most part by Urban Renewal. But if you found bones somewhere in there when you're digging, that to me is your worst case scenario, where you get a stop work order and you're still paying your contractors, but you're not able to do anything for a significant period of time. I've seen it in the Puget Sound area. I've seen it in other areas in Washington where your cost overruns become millions of dollars very quickly. That would be a worst case scenario that I would say is technically on the city's books. It's not on the agency's books.
Technically.
Technically, I'm sure the city would be coming to the agency saying, "Hey, can you take part in this?" But in terms of projects, some people would say it's a worst case scenario where you have an agencies who has directions to revitalize, eliminate blight, and do good things for downtown. And if you leave that money on the table where you could have done good things for your community that has been chosen and allowed to be taxed for a certain period of time, would I call it a worst case? Absolutely not, because even if that money goes back to the junior taxing districts, that is still money that is available to the community at large for what those community benefits are, because we're all one big family in a city.
Thanks.
I would entertain a motion on our budget.
I would just ask whoever is willing to make a motion, please be sure to make your motion to recommend the Urban Renewal recommend to the Urban Renewal Agency Board the fiscal 26-27 budget as amended, because I have given you an amended document. You have not made any changes to that at this point.
Thank you. I'll make a motion to recommend to Urban Renewal Agency the amended budget that we have in front of us for the 26-27 fiscal year.
Does anybody wish to make a second? Thank you. Further discussion on the budget. Seeing, hearing none.
Mr. Chair, one thing we don't have it, but usually before the approval of the budget, you take public comment.
Very good. Is there any comment from the public on the motion to recommend the amended budget? Hearing and seeing none. I would ask that all those are in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye or raising their hands online.
Aye.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. All those opposed? One opposed. Jill, did you vote aye or not?
Sorry, yes, I did say I could not
Yes,
get to
thank
raising my hand quick enough.
Thank you. Any abstention? Motion passes. I don't believe that we need to set future meetings. Yes.
I'd like a motion to recommend to City Council and the Urban Renewal Agency not to create a new urban renewal district after the sunset of the current district in 20.
I don't know if that's proper for the budget committee to take up, but I think that would be very proper for the Urban Renewal Board to take up. So I'd encourage you to come to the Urban Renewal Board meeting next, or any of the next ones, and encourage that.
Make a recommendation from this committee, and I was told it was as long as it had to do with the budget. And
I'm not sure who told you or what conversations you had, Donna. I'm telling you, I don't know. I'm not stifling you. I'm telling you straight up, I don't know if that's proper. Regardless, I would encourage you to come and talk to the Urban Renewal Board and get them to make that motion, because that's who it needs to come from, I would think, anyway.
And I would say also City Council, really, City Council would be the one forming any urban renewal districts in the future, correct?
I don't know that.
I mean, isn't that who creates this urban renewal district?
I don't know if the City Council is the only entity that could do that. I don't know if there's any other entity. I don't know if I just don't know that. Perhaps the county could.
Talk to the City Council.
If I may.
Yes.
So it is City Council that does that. City Council actually used to administer the Columbia Gateway Urban Renewal Agency Board.
Right.
And then there was, at some point, I don't remember exactly what year, then the current agency board was convened. So I would encourage you to talk to City Council about that.
Chair, just as a point of order, there is a motion on the table. There needs to be a second to the motion in order for discussion to occur.
Thank you. Is there a second to the motion? The motion would be to recommend to the Urban Renewal Board and City Council to resist the idea of forming another district after 2020. Is there a second to the motion? Anyone online? 3, 2, 1. Hearing, seeing none. I think the motion
Second.
dies for want of a second. Any other business to come before this committee tonight?
I just had one request. If the additional information could be sent out to us, or the updated information could be sent to everybody, that would be appreciated.
We will send you the full packet as updated.
Thank you.
I don't know that we formally adjourn a budget committee, do we?
Yeah, there's a German on the agenda.
Yep.
Okay. There's also budget approval. So we've recommended to the Urban Renewal Board, who will take this up, I believe, at the next meeting.
Yes.
Being our business is concluded, I will call us adjourned. Thank you all for serving this evening.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Nice shout.
You got rid of us, but we can bring you back.
Dan, see you, buddy.
Miss you guys.
We'll talk more soon.
I figured that.
I had to come back.
Yeah.
Take care, Cody.
See you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you for doing, by the way. It's
Thank
really
you, Jacob.
handy.
We still need to get together, sir. I know.